All right, guys, we are about to jump into another Deal Finders podcast, and I'm telling you right now, take a pen and paper, get started with your notes, because we're going to give you a masterclass on how to do vacant land deals. What does it look like to buy and sell vacant land deals or wholesale vacant land deals, and why it's so important in today's market to get that early and quick win in this business of real estate, especially when you're starting out brand new. We are seeing our students, our partners, recoup their first investment through land deals much quicker than trying to go for the bigger houses and duplexes and quads, apartments and stuff like that, right? Those properties take longer. Let's jump into this vacant land masterclass with Joe McCall. See ya. All right, Deal Finders, we are here with my friend Joe McCall from St. Louis out there halfway across the country, and we're going to talk about dirt. We're going to talk about how dirt across the country is sold, transacted, and how you can make some profits on it. So, Joe, let's just get started in here. And can you tell us a little bit about you? You know, where are you from? Where are you working?
Yeah, cool. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. My wife, 4 kids. We homeschool our kids because not that we're anti-public school, we're just so pro-homeschool, and we like the freedom that this business gives us. So I've done all of my deals virtually, never go look at them. I got started full-time doing real estate wholesaling in 2009. I was a professional student for about 3 years before that, as I like to say. And about 5-6 years ago, I started wholesaling vacant land instead of houses because I could do it with my kids, and I wanted to do deals with my kids. So that's how I got into vacant land.
I love it. So I know you said 2009. You've been through a lot in this space. 2009, of course, was kind of, I guess, the bottom or beginning to get to the bottom of the real estate cycle, and you started there in wholesaling. So I like to start our podcast with just what was that first deal like? Because as deal finders, what we are trying to show folks out there that are trying to get started is that those deals are right around the corner. They're probably in your own backyard or within your network or community today if you just know how to ask, talk about it, and look for it. So can you tell us about that first deal that really got you going?
Yeah, I remember it was a great deal. And in fact, this was in 2007 when I did this deal, maybe 2008, before I quit my job and went full-time into it. But I remember it because, like I said, I was a professional student for 3 years. And I was studying and buying course after course and book after book and doing all this research, and then chasing one shiny object and then another one and then another one. And then I finally got to a point where I was spending way more money on my education than I was making. And I decided I'm going to stop asking questions and I'm going to stop changing things. And I'm just going to do what the guy says to do. Whoever I'm buying this course from, I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to change it anymore. And at the time, this course that I bought, I said, all right. And I was hemorrhaging cash. I had bought some really bad deals. I thought at the time, I remember thinking wholesaling is for beginners. It's for rookies. I want to be a professional real estate investor. So wholesaling, I looked at it as below me. And so I thought that's ridiculous. So I wanted to learn wholesaling. I said, I'm going to buy one more guy's program. And I remember very, very clearly thinking about this where I was, because I had been talking to my wife, trying to get into real estate. And I told her, I said, listen, if I don't do a deal in the next 3 months, I'm just going to quit real estate, give up, and just focus on my job. I had a good paying job, but I was trying to do 2 things. I was trying to do my job, 3 things, and trying to be a dad and a husband, and then trying to do this real estate thing on the side. And I couldn't do them very well at all. So I'm going to buy one more program. And I bought this guy's course. Good friend of mine, his name is Chris Chico. And he had a course at the time called Absentee Owner Profits. And this was back 2008. And even back then, everybody's always complaining about competition. Back then, we were complaining about competition. It was too competitive. It's too hard. Either people are complaining there's not enough sellers or there's not enough buyers. There's not enough money. There's too much money. I don't know. So it's there's always something to complain about.
Yep.
But I was complaining about there's too many investors. It's too competitive. And then he was saying, all right, get this list, send this postcard, use this contract, use these scripts. And I just thought, I don't like that. Because I thought, obviously, I know better, right? Because I bought all these courses.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know any better because I was an idiot. I wasn't doing anything with what I was learning. So I said, I'm just going to trust the system. And so I sent out his postcards to the list that he recommended to get. And I got a call. And this lady left me a voicemail because I was too afraid to answer the phones. She left a voicemail, and she didn't even want to sell that house that I had messaged or sent her a postcard about. She had another house about an hour outside of the city in the sticks, in this small town, maybe 3,000 people, and it was a 3-family. And I told her, I just ignored the voicemail. Wow. And she called me like 2 or 3 times. And I finally called her back, and I said, I'm not interested, because I looked the property up. I couldn't find any comps. I couldn't find any buyers that were buying deals out there. And I was just petrified. I was afraid of making a mistake, buying a bad deal, and looking like an idiot. I was afraid of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, she said, listen, please just make an offer. She actually begged me to make an offer. Can you believe this?
Wow.
And I looked, and I saw that it was listed the year before for like $140,000, and it didn't sell. It expired. It was a 3-family. She had she didn't have any written leases on these properties, right? No leases. And it was a week-to-week thing where she would go every week and knock on the door and get cash from the rents.
Yeah.
So I looked, I said, I don't know. And I just pulled a number out of you-know-what, literally. And I said, I can offer you 50 for it, maybe. And she said, okay, fine. How do I sign the contract? And I was like, what? And so
wow.
She said, all right. And so I knew she was elderly. And now I'm freaking out, like, oh my gosh, she's got, she's an older lady. I'm going to be accused of taking advantage of an old lady. So I asked her, do you have any kids? And she did. She had one son who was in his 20s. I said, well, can I meet the both of you? And I wanted to meet them somewhere public, because she's like, well, can't we just go to your office? And I'm freaking out, like, oh my gosh, I don't have an office, Yeah. I said, well, why don't we meet at and she knew where this YMCA was, kind of halfway between myself and where she was. So I met her at a YMCA. I don't know why. And I said, just bring your son there. I'll meet you there. And so I spent the next 6 hours working on the contract. I took all of these courses that I bought, and I combined all of the contingencies into this one contract. I had so many contingencies in there, they probably canceled each other out.
Yeah.
And then she said she wanted earnest money deposit. I said, okay, fine. And she wanted a $1,500 earnest money, I think is what it was. And I'm like an idiot. I didn't know any better. I gave her a check for $1,500 made out to her that I gave to her when she signed the contract, which you never do that, right? You always give it to the title company. And so I spent hours on this contract, right? And the course that I had, he just had 1-page contract, but I thought, that can't work. There's got to be something wrong with that. It's too simple. So I used a real complicated 6-page contract that I got from some other program or whatever. But I sat down with her, and she didn't even look at it. She just went to the last page, signed it. I was like, oh my gosh. And I asked her son, I said, is everything cool? And he goes, yeah, dude, whatever. And so I was like, oh, wow, now what am I going to do? And I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
So Chris said to put signs out. So I put a sign out there, so it was listed before for $140,000. I had a contract to buy it and close in 30 days for $50,000. And so I thought, well, shoot, I called up one of a coach that I had from another program, and he said, well, just put it out there for $65,000, and do signs. So I put some signs out there, $65,000. And I didn't even go to the property. I had a friend go out for me. And I started getting flooded with calls, $65,000. And I started getting flooded with calls. The first guy that called me was a realtor. And I'm freaking out, like, oh my gosh, a realtor. Like, when he finds out I don't own this property, that I'm wholesaling it, he's going to think that this is illegal. And I told him, I said, well, I got to tell you something. I don't own the property. I hope this is okay. But, and he said, well, I had no problem, and I said, well, another problem I was like, I got this under contract for 50 and I'm trying to sell it for 65. I hope that's okay. And he's like, don't worry about it. It's fine. Just relax, dude. I was like, okay, well, he said, listen, it's a cash deal. my buyer is looking for more properties in that area. And I said, well, what about commissions? He said, don't worry about it. My buyer will pay me the commissions. I'm like, wow, okay. But I said, I don't have a title company. He said, don't worry about it. We'll just use ours. I said, well, give me their number. So I called the title company and I told them, I said, listen, I have this property under contract to buy for 50. This realtor says he's got a buyer that will pay 65. I just want to let you know, and I hope this is okay. I don't own this thing yet, and I'm going to be making a lot of money, and I don't know if this is all right. And the title company's like, relax, dude. It's okay. It's fine. It's just a cash deal. And then I couldn't get leases. We couldn't get into any of the properties to inspect them because they were week to week, and none of the tenants had cell phones or even regular phones. And so you had to go there and actually knock on the door and say, hey, can we come in and look around? And so the buyer wasn't going to do that. And so I was thinking this is going to fall apart. But it was such a good deal. The buyer didn't care.
Yeah.
So anyway, after all of that, even after I was smart enough to take a picture of the earnest money deposit check that I made to the seller.
Yeah.
So after all of that cost and everything, I made about $13,000 on this deal. Everything went fine. And that guy who owns it still owns it today. This was 15, 17 years ago. I forget, wow. Maybe even longer than that. But I couldn't believe, after all of this trial and error and questioning everything and making sure all of my I's were dotted, all my T's were crossed before I ever took any action, and making sure I understood steps 7 and 8 before I started doing steps 1 and 2. It wasn't until I finally said, screw it, I'm just going to trust what Chris says to do, and I'm going to do it.
Yep.
That's when I finally started doing deals. And even after making mistakes, it still all worked out. It was amazing.
Isn't that something? I think I'm glad you wrapped that up with the trust the process, tagline there, where I feel like in our local community at Deal Finders, we do local events weekly, just about, and there's a lot of what you call professional students, because now, back then there was not nearly as many opportunities to learn online now, right? So YouTube and TikTok, you can actually learn a lot from that, but there's also more people teaching because of the success that you've had and other people have had in real estate. And so,
well, there was a lot of people teaching back then too. Some people make the mistake of thinking that the market's oversaturated. There's a lot of gurus. There's a lot of wholesalers. There's a lot of this and that. There was back then as well, right? There were a ton of investors out there doing bandit signs and post-it notes or postcards rather. And so some things just don't change, right? Yeah. There are still motivated sellers out there. There are still tons of buyers out there looking for deals. There are still deals to be made. And I would stop worrying about competition. The only people worried about competition are beginners, are newbies, people that have not done a deal before. If you've done deals before, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be. It doesn't matter if it's a buyer's or seller's market. The only people worried about whether it's a buyer's or seller's markets are the beginners, are the rookies. So stop acting like a rookie. And even if you are, just trust the system. I'm telling you, right? And sometimes it's a leap of faith, man. You got to jump off the building and figure out how to fly as you fall. And if you've got a good coach or a good network of people that you're around, like it sounds like you guys have, Andrew, with Deal Finders, there will be the resources available to help you when you need it, right? Mm-hmm. And when I was stuck with that first deal, I had a coach. I called him. He helped me, right? I went back to the course that I bought, and it told me what to do. And so just don't worry about all of the what ifs, because if you're stuck in this analysis paralysis of what if this happens, what if that happens, what if this, you'll never get stuck, and you'll never do. What if it's a buyer's market? What if it's a seller's market? What if there's too much competition? Just shut the brain down a little bit, right? And just trust the system and make offers. That's all that matters. Make offers, and you will do deals.
Yeah, I love that. I was actually kind of explaining some of this to my son. And we'll get into how you started doing deals with your kids, but my son, we were talking about baseball, and he's like, well, what if a guy on first and they hit the ball to third, and what do we do then? And we have a packet. It's like this thick. It's an inch thick of all the potential plays in baseball. What would you do if you're right field and it's hit to left field? And so if you tried to say, I'm not stepping foot on this field until I know all of these potential plays, you'll never get on the field, right? And so,
but it is good to think about. All right, if I do get the ball, do I throw it to first base or second base?
Exactly.
It's good to think about those little things, but stop over analyzing it and think of all the potential what ifs. Just trust the system. And by the way, I'll say this. This is why it's so important, I think, when people are just getting started, to partner with other people who have done deals before, right? Find somebody else who's done deals before and say, hey, listen, if I find a deal and I bring it to you, can we partner on it?
Yep.
Right? And don't offer to take them out to lunch or coffee and to pick their brain, right? Stop that. But just like, learn how to find the deals, learn how to make offers, whatever, and then find somebody who says, hey, if I bring you a deal, can we sit down and have lunch? Right? Okay, yeah, cool. What kind of deals are you looking for? And so don't offer to pick their brains and pay them coffee or lunch, right? But find a deal for them first and then offer that. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And to keep going on my baseball analogy, because it just fits right now with the World Series, but if you're playing right field, you don't have to know where the ball goes every time. Get it to your cutoff. And that's the next piece, is find your partner, find the next person in your community, in your network that can be your cutoff to partner with and get the deal done, right? Get it to home. We're going to take this all the way. So
that's a great analogy.
Yeah. So, well, let's jump into, because we're talking about the kids and the family and financial freedom that real estate has done for our family and your family as well, where you transitioned out of that wholesaling, a 3-family in the very beginning to really focusing on land. So tell me, what was that transition? Why did you start going that way? And what's it look like today?
Well, yeah, when my boys were getting older, at the time they were 13, 14 years old or so. And I wanted to start doing deals with them. But, with houses, they're a little more complicated, right? Like, you got to worry about how to estimate repairs, the ARV, the after repair value. And when you're talking to sellers, you're talking to a seller that's lived there for 20, 30 years, or they've put $100,000 into it and they're just a tired, frustrated landlord. And they're getting a ton of offers from other people. So it's like, my boys are smart, but I didn't want to throw them into that. I didn't have the time to train them how to negotiate and talk to sellers and evaluate deals. So I'd done a podcast for a long, long time, and I started interviewing other people that were doing vacant land deals. And I started learning about how they're doing it, and I started putting my own twist to things. And I realized there's some software that I use and some technology that I have that makes wholesaling deals a lot easier. And I thought, well, what if I just apply that technology that I'm doing for houses into the land? And so we started doing deals on vacant land, wholesaling, just like houses, but we were wholesaling vacant land. We're not doing anything to the house, or, we're not doing anything to the houses. We're not doing anything to the land either. We're not subdividing it. We're not adding utilities. I'm not clearing anything out. And so what we did is we thought, all right, well, it's real simple. We go find where all of the activity is. Where are a lot of people buying land in the recent past, in the last 3 months? And then we're getting a list of people who own land there. They've owned it for over 10 years. And we're sending them cheap, ugly postcards that drive them to a voicemail. And so I didn't want my kids to talk to sellers, right? And they're busy with school and sports and work and all that. And so I thought, let's get the sellers, get the postcards to leave a voicemail. And so they would leave a voicemail with a reference number on the postcard. And the voicemail says, hey, thanks for calling. What's the reference number on that postcard? And we'll send you an offer within 24 to 48 hours. So they leave the voicemail, and then my boys would get the voicemail, would do the analysis, and it's just looking at Zillow and Redfin.
Yeah.
And we'd come up with an offer, and we would send them an offer before we even talk to them. So we'd get the voicemail, we'd send them an offer, and once they got the offer, if they called back, then I would talk to them. And we would get it under contract, and then we would hire a local realtor to sell the deal for us. Mm-hmm. And it became like we started doing these deals left and right, and we started making offers at in order for us to make our profit, these offers are like at 35, 40 cents on the dollar, right? And we're selling them at maybe 85, 90 cents on the dollar. And usually there's about a $5,000 to $10,000 spread in there. And we would sell them within 1 to 3 months. On average, it was about 1 out of every 30 offers that we'd send would get accepted. 1 out of 30 offers. And so with my boys, doing this very part-time over a span of 2 or 3 years, we did about $153,000 in profit, about $151,000 in profits.
Yeah.
On those deals. But I've done lots of deals since then without them, just on my own.
Yeah.
But I thought, yeah, man, this is great. Like, if my kids can do deals without having to talk to sellers, and you're not dealing with all the competition that you have with houses, it's just way easier to do.
Yeah. I love that. So there's a couple of things that you mentioned that I think would be great help for for people listening on the podcast, and really give some details of what does it look like to actually start this. So you mentioned finding recent activity, like locating where activity's happening. How does one do that if they have no idea?
Well, I start with landwatch.com and I look for cheap land under $100,000. And you just look to see what are the most popular states where most of the property, vacant land, is being listed. Mm-hmm. And then I pick like 2 or 3 states. And then it kind of starts with LandWatch, because if you go there, it'll show you the most popular states and then the most popular counties in each one of those states. And then I start looking at the actual sold data from either Redfin or Zillow in those counties. So I make a list of 2 or 3 states, and I list the top 20 counties in each of those states. And I just go to Redfin or Zillow, and I look in the last 90 days in Jackson County, North Carolina, for example, how many vacant lots have sold in the last 90 days.
Yeah.
And I just make a list and I write down, and you can see the most popular counties where most of the land is being bought or sold. Mm-hmm. And so when I find like 5 or 10 counties that looks like there's a lot of activity recently, can I get a list of people who own vacant land there? And so when I pull a list, I'm looking for, have they owned the land for over 10 years, and do they live outside of the zip code?
Okay.
So is the mailing zip code different than the property zip code? Is a mailing zip code where the tax bill is sent? And if they're different, that's all I need. I'm going to download that list, and then I send them a cheap, ugly postcard. It just says, hey, do you want to sell your land? Call me. Call our 24-hour recorded voicemail. No one will answer. And that voicemail then tells them, hey, we buy land. If you want to sell your land, leave your voicemail, leave your name and number and the reference ID on that postcard, and we'll send you an offer.
Wow.
It's as simple as that.
Yeah. So where are you said pulling a list. Where are you pulling your lists from?
Yeah, I'm a big FreedomSoft user. FreedomSoft is a CRM software for real estate investors made by wholesalers for wholesalers.
Yep.
And I've been using that for years, and I've customized it to I have what's called the Joe McCall Signature Edition for land investors. And so in FreedomSoft, it does 99% of everything I do. So I pick the counties, and then FreedomSoft tells me the best zip codes in those counties. So I'm not spraying and praying, as I call it. I'm finding the best zip codes where most of the people are buying land. And then I download a list of all the sellers who own land there. And then I can also get a list of all the buyers who are buying land there. And then I take that list and I click a few buttons. I send them a postcard. I set up my voicemail, my phone number and my voicemail right inside of FreedomSoft. Mm-hmm. And as the leads come in, as they go to voicemail, I can call them back. I can text them back. I can generate my contracts. I can send them in the physical mail. I can send one-off offers. So when I send offers, I always send offers in the physical mail. It's really important. Mm-hmm. So I don't just trust email or text. I send it in the physical mail. And then what's really important is the automated follow-up, right? You're going to 75% of our deals come from follow-up. And so the thing I like about FreedomSoft is it does that automated follow-up for me. It's all automated. It's just done for me in spite of me. So when a lead comes in, I send them an offer in the physical mail, and then the system sends them a text message and an email 9 days later. And then 30 days later from the original, it sends them the same offer again. Yeah. 30 days later, it sends them another offer. 30 days later, it sends them a postcard. Then it sends them a letter. Then it sends them a postcard. So it does all of the follow-up like every 30 days until I hear back from them. And then when they call back, FreedomSoft handles like all of the communications right inside of that lead. So yeah, I love it.
I love it. So y'all, if you're listening to this, I hope, well, if you didn't have a pen and paper, rewind, go listen to this again and write that down, because Joe just literally gave you a master class on how to set up a land buying business that, and this, I'm going to use your words because I loved it, that works in spite of you. because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur like we are, we have a lot of other things bouncing around, and that is one thing that gets missed are these follow-ups and the marketing and the pieces that have to keep going. So I'll give another option for data is dealfinderdata.com. Y'all can check that out. But the FreedomSoft, we actually use that as well as part of our system. I love their AI technology now. So it sounds like you're kind of maybe using that for your zip codes. And if you want that signature edition, Joe, we'll give maybe a link. I don't know how you would get to it, but
yeah. If you go to freedomsoftjoe.com, you get some information there. freedomsoftjoe.com.
That would be perfect. So people can sign up or use that, utilize that. The big part, you talked about postcards and putting things in the mail. And y'all, if you're listening to gurus out there, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, the mail's dead. Don't send the mail." Y'all, for land, especially, we send postcards for everything we buy. But Joe, you're probably seeing land in the mail is the best way to get people.
Yeah, so you're lucky when you're sending postcards for houses. You're lucky if you get half of 1%.
Correct.
Response rate, right? With land, we're getting 5 to 10% response rates with our mail, right? And mail is another way. It's a great way to find buyers as well. So when we get a deal under contract, we have this postcard that pretends to be like this desperate, motivated seller. This says, "Help, I'm desperate. I got to sell my property." Yeah. And we send that to all of the buyers who bought land in the last 6 to 12 months in that area. And that gets a tremendous response rate as well. So there is an upfront investment, to do direct mail. But when you look at it, the cost per lead, your which channel gives you the most profit in the least amount of marketing dollars spent, in my opinion, in my humble, correct opinion, nothing is better than direct mail, especially for vacant land right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Joe, we're going to kind of start wrapping this up, but I just want to, that was a great masterclass. You gave so much there, and I know you have so many other pieces of knowledge and info and just things you've learned that you share with people on your podcast. So I want to make sure people can get to that. So Real Estate Mastery is the name of the podcast, right?
Real Estate Investing Mastery.
Yeah. Investing Mastery. Okay. So we'll make sure we put a link to that. But what else would you say people need to just get started in land investing? What would be their first step?
Well, you can watch me do it. I do this class on Saturdays. It's $7, where I basically I created a challenge. I said, if you were to drop me off into a new market that I've never done deals in before, what would I do to start doing land deals? And so it's a class I do every Saturday. It's $7, where you can watch me do it and watch me how I use FreedomSoft, how I pick the markets, how I get the list, how I send the postcards, what postcards I send, how I make offers and things like that. So if you go to joemccall.com/Saturday, you'll see a link to that, joemccall.com/Saturday. And that's the best way to see it. Just watch me do it. And then I also have a ton of free stuff on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, I love that. I know Joe's a big go-giver. He's always there to help, especially students and people in his community, but just for everybody. Like you said, your podcast, your YouTube channel, it's always out there. He's got so much experience. It's one reason why I wanted him to come share with us, and I hope he'll come do it again. Joe, would that be the best way for people to reach out to you, is just to go to YouTube or?
Yeah.
Okay.
YouTube or Facebook. Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Y'all, so if you are just getting tuned in to real estate, this is as Joe had 3 years of his professional student career, I'm going to tell you to stop going in so many different directions and at least evaluate vacant land investing. For me, I know that this is a great place for people to get started, where the barrier of entry is lower and the competition, which, we just talked about, the competition is always there. But when you're in vacant land, there's less, because people aren't buying vacant land to live on for the most part. And especially what we're talking about, this land that's kind of tertiary. It's not in the heart of the city. So think about this, dive in, look at some of the resources that Joe has out there, and just get off of the sidelines. Start taking action and get in this game right now, because real estate is what, as Joe talked about, has created the freedom for his family, freedom for our family, and so many in our community that once you just get off the sidelines, you can start taking action and building your legacy and financial freedom. I love seeing wins. I love seeing people in our community, our students, our partners get that first win. And Joe, vacant land, we're seeing those be the first wins way more now. And so and I'm sure obviously you are, but that's not our focus, but I love seeing the wins.
Yeah. So I've been teaching real estate since 2011 or so.
Yeah.
That's when I started my podcast. And so I've seen a lot of students have success, right? Because I've taught house wholesaling, I've taught lease options and creative financing and stuff like that. But when I started teaching land a few years ago, I have way more success stories from students doing land deals than I ever did with houses, which is amazing. That just goes to show you really how much easier it is to do.
Yeah.
So I encourage everybody to check it out. You don't have to be like full-time into land. You can be just another tool in your tool belt, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time, Joe. We're going to cut it off here and let you get back to buying more land, letting your kids go out there and work for you. But then, hey, guys, if you want to ask questions, follow up with Joe, go to his Facebook page or YouTube. He's got a link there for sure. And then we'll put the links down below for Freedom Soft and his other things. So until the next podcast, y'all go out there, be deal finders, and start looking for some vacant land. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to the REI Deal Finders podcast. You can find out more and apply to be a part of the REI Deal Finder community at reidealfinders.club.